The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
Bear with me here. What happened yesterday at FedEx Field was the best thing that could have happened to this organization. Hey, well, what are you talking about? They lost the game. They pretty much lost hope of making the postseason. What kind of a point are you making here in saying that this is the best thing that could have happened? Stick with me. I'm going to explain this. We'll unpack all the stuff that happened yesterday, including more coaching blunders by Ron Rivera, some questionable officiating, and, just enough to lose to the Philadelphia Eagles again, which is the way things seem to go against this team. They play them well all the time, play them close, and look, it was an entertaining afternoon of football, right? I mean, you were entertained with that. There was a lot of frustration for sure, and if you're a Commanders fan, you're not happy with the result. But I say the result is absolutely perfect for this organization moving forward. Look, Ron Rivera was lame duck. You don't want to get into a situation like they had in his first year where they make the playoffs with a ridiculous record. They were 7-9. I don't think 7-9 or 7-10 or 8-9 is going to get you in this year, though it might. You never know. But really, I mean, it's time to clean the slate, to start over, and to move forward in the Josh Harris era. And why not start it now? Now, I'm not suggesting that you fire Ron Rivera. I don't think that's a good idea. I know the knee-jerk is, oh, what a boob. Should have challenged on that Devonta Smith non-catch on fourth down. Yeah, he should have. And his explanation makes him look even more foolish with that, and we'll get to the explanation. But I have seen what happens when you fire a coach during a season. The only reason that you do it is if the locker room is ready for a mutiny, if they've totally quit on the coach, which they haven't. They were competitive yesterday, and I would expect them to be competitive again when they play at New England next week. So it's not that situation there. What happens when you fire the head coach is somebody else has to take over those responsibilities. And, yes, it's fun to talk about Eric Bieniemy possibly doing that, although Bieniemy has a long way to go just as an offensive coordinator. You're not going to dump head coach on him at this point. So it becomes Jack Del Rio, who's been a head coach before, and when Ron Rivera was battling cancer, it was Del Rio who took over a lot of the responsibilities during the week. But, yeah, who's going to handle the defense now? Not that he's done a great job with that either. But there are just so many things that have to be accounted for what the head coach does that when you subtract the man who's doing that, it creates even more chaos in the organization. I remember in 2000, I was doing a television show with the Redskins. That was the crazy year where Danny went for it. He signed Bruce Smith and he signed Dion and Mark Carrier, who actually did the TV show with me along with Irving Fryer. And during the season, they fired Norv Turner. And we used to have a player on every week. And after they fired Norv at 7-6, I think it was the punter, Tommy Barnhart, if I'm not mistaken, who came on and he said, yeah, I mean, he also got the special teams coach at the same time. He fired LaCharles McDaniel. And there's nobody to, run the practice for the special teams. There's head coaching decisions that are made that he doesn't necessarily tell anybody about, that somebody else has to account for. Terry Ribisky had moved into that spot. And that was among the many early blunders by Dan Snyder, but he took a 7-6 team, which was very much in contention for the playoffs, and created even more chaos. They lost the next two to Dallas and Pittsburgh and were out of the playoffs and finished up 8-8. And so if you're going to fire Ron Rivera now, it's not going to make any difference what you do in the postseason. And if you're really interested in draft picks, I guess it increases your chances that you get a higher pick because you're probably going to lose more games. I think of the last 9, they could probably win 3 or 4 of them. I think that's certainly within play. And then that gets you 6 or 7 wins, which is, probably what they are. They're a 6 or 7 win team. But the most important thing that came out of yesterday was we saw the best game from Sam Howell. And I think we saw what Sam Howell can be. Are there things that have to be cleaned up? Yes. But somehow or another, he went through this game throwing, and let me get the exact number here, throwing 52 passes and being sacked once late in the game in an obvious passing situation. And I know there are people who believe, oh, well, you just shook up the offensive line a little bit. Finally, they did that, and Sam Howell was protected. No. They changed the way the offense was run, a lot of quick hitters, things like that, and they got the ball out quickly. That's what they needed to do. They couldn't drop them back all the time. And Howell, really stuck in there. He threw for almost 400 yards. He was 39 of 52 for 397. Yes, he did throw an interception late, but they won the turnover battle. They forced 2 turnovers, in fact, inside their own 5-yard line, which I think really played a difference in the final score. Could have been a lot worse. So they lost 38-31. Philly easily could have scored 2 more touchdowns and made this a laugher. But, even when they were down, the 2 scores, he kept going. And really, if Terry McLaurin makes either of those 2 catches, I think it gets even more interesting down the stretch. And, maybe they find a way to win that game. I'm not sure. But I was very, very impressed with Sam Howell, more impressed than I've been with him at any point this year. And I think they can feel like, okay, we got something here, and we're ready to move forward. I'm going to get to the trade deadline here in just a second, and I think that you have to consider, where you're going to be next year, who's going to be coaching the team, how the organization is going to be run. We've already seen, and this didn't get a lot of play last week, but we've already seen some of the fingerprints starting to form from Josh Harris and the ownership. They have hired an analytics guy, and I think his name is Eugene Shen, Senior Vice President of Football Strategy. That's a hire that is a nudge of Ron Rivera out the door, because this is, in some ways, it's undermining him. Danny used to do this all the time. When he didn't like a coach, he'd hire a consultant. He hired Bill Arnsparger as a defensive consultant because he wasn't happy with the way, and I forget who the defensive coordinator was at the time. That's what he would do. So this is Harris is in no way Dan Snyder, but when you hire somebody in the middle of a season that the coach doesn't hire, the coach-centric operation run by Ron Rivera, I'm sure he ran it by him first, but I don't think Rivera had a say in this. This is the owner starting to take charge, and I think it will really take effect at the end of the season. I don't see it happening during the season, but that's where they are right now. All right, let's roll through some of the post-game comments, and I think some of them are really telling. First of all, this was Rivera on what he had told his team after they had laid an egg last week against the Giants. They had laid an egg at home a couple of weeks earlier against Chicago. And now for the 3rd straight game, they play the defending champions from the NFC extremely well. So what does he tell his team after that?
More so than anything else, guys, if you can do that for 4 quarters with an elite team in the NFL, you should be able to do it anytime you want. And so, our focus is we got 9 games left to play. We'll play them one at a time. We'll focus in on what's coming up next. I mean, there's no reason not to play any less than what we just did. We can play better, too.
Well, okay, why have they been playing less than what they did yesterday? Some of it's got to do with coaching. Some of it has to do with that. So here we are, trade deadline, 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. And throughout the weekend, you heard various things with Jay Glazer saying yesterday on Fox that more than likely they will trade somebody on Tuesday, probably going to be Montez Sweat. He went out a little bit too far on Jonathan Allen. Jonathan Allen had that outburst after the Giants game last week where he dropped a bunch of F-bombs. And Glazer said, oh, Jonathan Allen wants to be traded. And somebody went, Well, essentially he said that. No, he didn't really say that, but he was fed up, and I'll get to a little bit later on what Jonathan Allen said after yesterday's game. But Montez Sweat name seems to be on the front burner. And this is Ben Standing of The Athletic, what he's reporting this morning. One team has offered the Commanders a 2024 third-round pick that would turn into a second-rounder if Sweat agrees to a contract extension. And he says the Falcons are among the teams interested in Sweat, who grew up near Atlanta. So that's in play. And then, if they're interested in signing him to an extension, which I'm sure you don't make a deal unless you do that, They lost yesterday. They're kind of on the brink of making a run at the playoffs. Maybe they will. Heineke got back in yesterday, which is interesting. So, maybe Heineke leads them on a run, and he's reunited with an old teammate tomorrow in Montez Sweat. We shall see. But this was Sweat in the locker room yesterday on the rumors that are swirling about him being traded.
It's just one of those things that, that you can't really control. Just come here, go to work. All that type of stuff is out of my pay grade, so I just come here and work.
Knowing all that is out there, is it hard to focus or kind of do what you need to do during the week? Or
I mean, it's in the air. It's not necessarily, though. I mean, just lean on my brothers, play for the guys next to me. We got a strong group, so, yeah. Now,
if I were making a decision as to which of the two I would want to hold on to, it would be Sweat with Chase Young. Now, Young has played well, though not yesterday. He played yesterday like he wanted to be traded. What do you have? One tackle yesterday. I don't know what he had in pressures. Didn't come close to a sack for what I was able to see on television. So I'm not so sure where he is at, but he is telling people that Washington is where he wants to be.
Do you want to be here still?
That's out of my control. In terms of evaluation, I'm going to go back and evaluate myself, see where I made mistakes, and just hold myself accountable.
Are you still happy here?
For sure. Love Washington.
Love Washington, he says. Well, he grew up here, and he has at times played well. The thing that would still concern me about Chase Young is his long-term health, that he missed 5-6 weeks with a stinger. He had a knee injury that kept him out a season, almost a full season, including half of the one where he was hurt, which would be 2021, and didn't come back until the third to last game of last year. So, I still wonder whether he's out of the woods injury-wise, because, a lot of guys, you see this, when they get hurt early, they stay hurt. His body's in motion, stay in motion, and that's a big concern for me about Chase Young. This is the question about the teammate that he has become very close to in his years here. They did a lot of chatting and yapping going into the 2021 season, how they were going to set the sack record together. They haven't lived up to that promise. But, in an old world where you didn't have salary cap and you didn't have all these restrictions, you might keep these two guys together for a long time, like you had Dexter Manley and Charles Mann for all those years with Washington. With the reality of the way the salary cap works now, that's probably not going to be possible, leaving this question to Young.
Chase, everybody knows how close you are with Montez Sweat. You don't know what's going to happen after Tuesday. Maybe think this was the last game you line up together. Give me your emotions on that.
Yeah, that's my brother, man. Twin Towers, we rocking for life. So that's not going to change if we're not in the same team.
Well, Twin Towers is a little early to say that because you haven't really accomplished that much together, other than showing at times some great potential. This is Sweat on how he feels about Chase Young.
Over the past couple of years, we really developed a camaraderie, a strong friendship. It would definitely be detrimental to split us up. But that stuff is out of our control. I know even outside of this, I got a friend for life.
Yeah, they are friends for life, which is nice. Detrimental? Detrimental to who? Detrimental to the organization? I don't think so. I think the best thing that this team can do between now and 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon is make everybody available. Everybody, just to see what the offers might be. And I would not expect both Chase Young and Montez Sweat to be here by 4:15 tomorrow afternoon. The other one to think about, and with Sam Howell playing like he has, and this team really not being, I don't think, in contention to make the playoffs, and certainly if they're sellers, that's an indication they don't really think they are. I'd deal Jacoby Brissett. And this league is a meat grinder right now. It is backup quarterback after backup quarterback, and it's not going to get better because Roger Goodell, armed with a new contract, is going to shove an 18-game schedule down everybody's throats. And we're going to find a time where the Super Bowl is played with two rookie quarterbacks who nobody's heard of, because that's where we are right now. Yesterday, the big injury, finally hit Kirk Cousins after all these years, remained remarkably healthy, has missed only 2 games in his career, one where he was rested with the Vikings already in the playoffs. They didn't play him. And then during COVID, he missed a game because he tested positive. Otherwise, he had never missed a game because of injury, and the next one will be that with the expectation he has a torn Achilles. Jaron Hall finished the game. They also have Nick Mullins, but he's on injured reserve, eligible to come back as soon as Week 10. And they have veteran Sean Mannion on the practice squad. Okay, so that's where the Vikings are. There's a lot of teams like that around the league right now. And, you know, to have Jacoby Brissett right now available for a team that's looking to go to the Super Bowl, and even if they have health at starting quarterback, that might be something I would think about right now. And if I were the Commanders and somebody offers me a third-round pick, I do it. I absolutely do it. I don't know if anybody would go that high, but that would be something that I would think about. A couple more things on the trade, and this is Terry McLaurin, who's always good to talk to, and took full accountability for the 2 drops yesterday. His thoughts on all this swirl about trades at the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, you see, obviously, with social media and everything nowadays, you try not to let it be your focus, and I think that's a great job of what we do as teammates. It's never been mentioned who's on the trade block or what's going on, and that aspect of it. We're just focused on playing football for each other, and but we're all human. We're a close group of guys, so to see anybody to leave this team would be tough. But we're just going to take it as it comes. We know it's part of the business of football, and whoever's here next week, we're going to find a way to see how we can come back better and try to beat New England.
They are 1-point underdogs heading into that game, and if you think you're getting something out of Ron Rivera on this trade deadline, forget it.
That I'm not going to answer any questions on personnel, okay, just so you understand it. I'll talk about the game we just played. I'll talk about the future game we're about to play, but I'm not going to talk about personnel.
And unless they make a deal before Rivera speaks, I'm not sure what time he's supposed to go today. Usually goes Monday afternoon. I don't think we're going to get much more out of him today. So, and then Tuesday, there's no media availability. So the next time we hear about anybody either staying on the roster who's unexpected to stay, like Sweat, or somebody being traded, will probably be on Wednesday. Coming up, more on the cluelessness of Ron Rivera yesterday. And if you're looking for more reasons why he won't be the coach next year, well, there are several from yesterday, one of them incredibly glaring. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
All right, we got Tony coming up today on this lovely Monday. I guess this is going to be our last day in the 70s for a while. It may hit 60s over the weekend, but man, how about Saturday? Hot. I think my air conditioner went on. I have not yet turned on the heat in my house. I haven't really had a reason to, and haven't turned off the air conditioning. So that made, I think, one last run for the year. But otherwise, no complaints about the weather as it's starting to get cold around the rest of the country. In fact, they had snow in Denver yesterday. Wasn't snowing during the game where the Broncos finally ended their losing streak. I think it was like 11 games against Kansas City. And by the way, Patrick Mahomes yesterday, if you missed this, Patrick Mahomes lost the first division road game of his career. First time he's lost to Denver, and it's the first division road loss of his career. That's pretty impressive for a guy who's been to 3 Super Bowls and has won 2 of them in a very young career. All right, let's get to the Michigas from Ron Rivera. And there are people who I'm sure are angry enough to say, get him out of here. Don't wait till the end of the season. Fire him today. I don't think that's going to happen. But if you're looking to make a case for that, you might point to what happened late in the third quarter where the Commanders are up 7 points. It's a 4th and 4 play. 4th and 4. And Jalen Hurts throws a first down pass to Devonta Smith right in front of the Commanders' bench. The players are standing and yelling and saying, throw the challenge, throw the challenge. He dropped the ball. Ron Rivera, who's seen often on the sidelines with his arms folded, didn't look like he had any intention of reaching for his pocket for the red challenge flag, and in fact did not. And the Eagles were able to score a touchdown off of that. Once again, Emmanuel Forbes, the rookie corner who has really struggled, particularly against A.J. Brown, what do you know? 3 plays later, there is Emmanuel Forbes one-on-one with A.J. Brown, who catches a touchdown pass, and the game is tied. So why would Rivera in that situation, with really nothing to lose at that point except a timeout? Yeah, you don't want to burn a timeout in the third quarter, but that's a crucial point. And if you got players saying challenge, 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 why didn't you do it? Here's Ron.
Because I didn't see it on the screen. I was looking up the screen to see if there was something that could help me with it. And then I was waiting to hear somebody upstairs, did you see it or not? And we hadn't seen the replay yet. So we weren't sure. And so we just, and they did their hurry up, ran to the line and snapped the ball. I mean, you would almost think in that amount of time somebody else could have looked at it and might have saw it apparently. I mean, I still don't know whether it was or wasn't complete. It wasn't complete? Okay.
You got to wait for the replay? You got to wait for that? No, you got to have somebody up there anticipating what's going to happen, watching every play closely, every play that could be challenged, and saying to Rivera, challenge, challenge, challenge. Remember Joe Gibbs, when he came back in 2004. He had last coached in 1992. The NFL at that point had done away with replay, and when they had replay, it was all up to the booth. Like there was no challenge at that time. So he did a smart thing. He hired a challenge coach. His name was Larry Hill. And Larry Hill's job was to sit up in the booth. He was a former replay official, good hire. And he was to advise Gibbs on what to do, either challenge or don't challenge. And there were a lot of bizarre challenges and non-challenges on the part of Gibbs. And we came to find out later that Larry Hill was telling him the right thing to do, and Gibbs wasn't listening. He said, I'm going to challenge anyway. And it would turn out to be a mistake. And so here's Ron Rivera, after all these years in the league. He's waiting for somebody up in the booth to tell him whether to challenge or not? Really? It's at that point. I mean, Bruce Allen did this for a few years. Okay, that was under Dan Snyder ownership. A lot of stupidity happened then. But really? You're going to wait and wait. And you got a veteran quarterback in Jalen Hurts. He's been to a Super Bowl. He knows what to do. He got the team right up to the line. They ran a play, and when you saw it on replay on TV, it was clear that he dropped the ball. The ball was dropped by Devonta Smith. There was no question about it. And we have seen clueless Ron before, have we not? Remember against Cleveland last year where he made the decision to start Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz was a disaster. And in a game that had they won, they were in the playoffs or would have been in the driver's seat for the playoffs anyway. And they lost the game. And then Rivera, unaware of this after it was over.
To clarify, you said you would talk about quarterback next week. If you guys are eliminated today by what happens at 4 o'clock, is Sam Howell in consideration?
We can be eliminated.
Yeah, if the Packers beat the Vikings, then you guys are eliminated.
Oh, we could be eliminated? Really? Oh, you dropped the ball? Huh? Really? So, I mean, it's over here. We know that, and it's just a question of how bad it looks over the last games of the year. Okay. So again, here's where I am on this. Just to be clear, Ron Rivera is gone as head coach at the end of the year. I am not in favor of getting rid of him now. I don't think that serves a purpose. The team is still playing hard for him, and it does not seem to be in the nature of Josh Harris to do this, and I don't think he wants to make a big, bold statement that, I'm here to kick ass and take names. I think he's very patient in what he does. That's helped to make him as successful as he is. He's not impetuous like Dan Snyder. And I think we wait out to see what happens in the last 9 games of the year, and then they'll pull a couple of wins they shouldn't be able to do, and we'll get it done. I mean, it won't be. I don't think it'll be a complete embarrassment. If it gets to that point, you have to make a coaching change. But at this point, I stay the course for the rest of the year. Coming up, much more from the Commanders off yesterday's loss and where they go with the trade deadline coming up tomorrow afternoon. And it was 4 years ago today that the Nationals won the World Series. How glorious it was. We'll relive it as we continue with the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. So, when we left Jonathan Allen a week ago yesterday, after the Commanders lost to the Giants 14-7 in New York, oh boy, Jonathan Allen was not a happy man. And misinterpreted or not researched enough by Jake Glazer, who does the insider stuff for Fox, said it. Jonathan Allen demanded a trade, and then, said sort of. No, he didn't. He didn't actually demand a trade. But after they lost to the Giants, if you recall, and we spent a lot of time talking about this, after they lost to the Giants, let me let the music run out here. Here we go. Finish up, guys. Here we go. All right. Now, after they lost to the Giants, this was Jonathan Allen as he stepped away from reporters' microphones.
Does it get frustrating when that?
Yes, it does. I'm fucking tired of this. Tired of this. Been 7 years of the same. Tired of this.
What can you do now going forward to get it turned around?
Get our minds right and get ready to play Philadelphia.
Well, the minds may be right, and they may have been ready to play Philadelphia, but it didn't work out the way Jonathan Allen had expected it to work out. And after losing yesterday, where they gave up 38 points, they gave up a lot of yards, they let A.J. Brown work them over again. He had 8 catches for 130 yards, and he also caught 2 touchdown passes. This was Jonathan Allen's assessment.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely improvements, but as a defense, we gave up 38 points. Not good enough to win.
Is it fixable?
100% is always fixable, but we got to do it. Starting with me, I just got to go back and look at what I could have done better and go from there.
Can you get pressure on a guy like Hurts? Or is it just the way they're handled it?
I'm going to let the tape speak for itself.
That was a question about how they handled Jalen Hurts. Hurts, by the way, if you've been watching him the last couple of weeks, he's not the same. He had a run yesterday. How many times did he run the ball? Let me check that. Rushing attempts for Philly. Hurts ran the ball 4 times for 6 yards. That would include, I guess, a couple times he got caught behind the line of scrimmage. But when he took off on a 6 or 7 yard run, he just didn't look the same. So they didn't face a 100% Jalen Hurts. But Jalen Hurts did enough to win this game, obviously. And he was able to convert on 3rd downs, which is a problem now for the Commanders. Looked like they'd had that fixed for almost a full season going back to last year. But that's generally a problem week to week for a defense that was hyped to the moon and has not lived up to the hype. Philadelphia 8 for 13 on 3rd downs. They had 374 total yards, which is right up above about the average of what the team is giving up, as they are 29th in the league in yards allowed, and they put 38 points on the board, and the Commanders are 31st in the league in points allowed. So this vaunted defense isn't that at all. And what the film will show, who knows? But some really questionable decisions that they made, and including if you're going to get Emmanuel Forbes back on track, maybe it's like when you fall off your bicycle, your father says, "Oh, you got to jump back on it," and maybe this was part of the strategy. But Forbes, who sat out a full game after getting torched the last time by A.J. Brown, then played sparingly last week in that ugly loss to the Giants. Here he's back on the field in a key situation, and he gets torched again by, what do you know, A.J. Brown. Here's Rivera.
Well, yes, he's had a couple of really good weeks of practice and good work. It was a personnel grouping that we used where we knew we'd be able to give him some help. And, that's credits to them.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah, but not a credit to you, because this personnel grouping, which included Emmanuel Forbes, checking A.J. Brown one-on-one, didn't work. Darrell Green was honored yesterday, irony of irony, a former first-round corner pick who's in the Hall of Fame, played 20 years, helped them to win 2 Super Bowls, and I think he played in the 7 Pro Bowls. He said he can fix Emmanuel Forbes in about 10 minutes. Well, if you can, have at it, Darrell, though I have my doubts. I know Darrell. I like him a lot, but he hasn't been a part of football for 20 years. He's done other things with his life after retiring from the NFL and played until he was 42 years old, by the way, and probably knows a few tricks of the trade. But as far as coaching, I don't know. But again, coaching decision. How do you put Emmanuel Forbes in that position? And how do you, this was, I think, the most egregious thing that Ron Rivera did yesterday, how do you, up 7, the Eagles are driving to try and tie the game. It comes down to a 4th and 4, and there's a pass to Devonta Smith. And Smith clearly drops the ball if you see the replay. But, veteran quarterback and Jalen Hurts knows exactly what to do, gets his team to the line very quickly, gets a playoff so they can't review it. And this is the most disturbing thing that Ron Rivera said yesterday in explaining, because he had all his players on the sideline. They see it. They're yelling, throw the flag, throw the flag. It's right up against the Washington sideline. The players can see it. They're 20 feet away. And Rivera does not throw the red flag, which was egregious on one end of this. On the other is, where is the other guy on the other end telling him, Ron, throw the flag, throw the flag? Well, he's only risking a timeout at this point. Yes, it's late third quarter. Maybe in a tight game, you want to preserve all your timeouts for the end of the game. Okay, but the only thing you have to lose here is a timeout if the challenge is not upheld. And what does Ron Rivera do? He keeps the flag in his pocket. And most disturbing of all, says this to reporters after the game as to why he didn't challenge.
Because I didn't see it on the screen. I was looking up the screen to see if there was something that could help me with it. And then I was waiting to hear somebody upstairs, did you see it or not? And we hadn't seen the replay yet. So we weren't sure. And so we just, and they did their hurry up, ran to the line and snapped the ball. I mean, you would almost think in that amount of time somebody else could have looked at it and might have saw it apparently. I mean, I still don't know whether it was or wasn't complete. It wasn't complete? Okay.
It wasn't complete? Okay. Well, what do you got to know these things. And where's your challenge guy to tell you what to do? It's just maddening. And it's not the first time this kind of thing has reared its ugly head. You remember last year, second to last game of the year, when he had to go back to Carson Wentz, and Carson Wentz was absolutely terrible in a loss to Cleveland, a game that had they won, might have put them in the playoffs. Instead, it put them on the brink of elimination. And Rivera didn't know that. Listen to this exchange last year after the Cleveland game.
To clarify, you said you would talk about quarterback next week. If you guys are eliminated today by what happens at 4 o'clock, is Sam Howell in consideration?
We can be eliminated?
Yeah, if the Packers beat the Vikings, then you guys are eliminated.
Wasn't a catch? We can be eliminated? Ron. Bubby, time to go. I'm not advocating firing him now. I think he finishes out the season, but this is low level stuff. You got to be more on top of that, and that is very disturbing. Also had a situation. Now this is not necessarily his fault, though. I would hope that he's got a better handle on the rules than he appears to have here. This is now on a catch at the end of the game, and it looks like Jahan Dotson catches the ball. And, in fact, there's a challenge on the field from the Eagles who say it was not a catch. Now, you got to go through this video with a fine-tooth comb. It's so hard to tell, and usually they go with what's ruled on the field. So it's a long delay. Rivera's talking to the officials, and finally they rule, incomplete, fourth down. And they don't convert on fourth down, and that's essentially the game. This is Rivera on what happened there and why he was not able to get that call corrected, because it did look like Jahan Dotson made the catch.
Because I didn't see it on the screen. I was looking up the screen to see if there was something that could help me with it, and then I was waiting.
Oh, here's the one. This is the one. This is the one on the Dotson catch.
They told me New York decided it wasn't a completion, and I struggled because it took them so long to get it correct that you'd think that they didn't emphatically know that it was an incompletion, and it did look like the left hand was under. I mean, when you get a chance to see the replay, that helps you. And I was looking up at it, and I saw, I did see John's right hand come up, but I saw his left hand under the ball. So that's what I was told, was that it was decided by New York that they felt it was incomplete.
Now, here's the second part of this. Okay, New York makes the ruling, the ball's incomplete. It seemed that you'd still have some recourse on this, right? I mean, you still have a challenge left. It's already been challenged by Philadelphia. Okay, so that's a part of it. But this is Rivera on the question of, did you think it would be a fruitless challenge given that New York made the ruling in throwing the flag? Here we go.
That's a good question, but for me, looking at it, if it took that long to decide, they couldn't tell me then emphatically that it was incomplete. And that's what I thought the rule was supposed to raise to. If they call it a completion, right, and the other team challenges, now we try to see if you can see it emphatically. Well, if you take that long to make a decision, obviously you're not 100%, or at least that's my feeling on it.
Okay. Well, whatever. Didn't go their way. They lose the game, and here's where they are heading into the trade deadline tomorrow. It was reported by Adam Schefter over the weekend that if they lost yesterday, they were going to be sellers and look for Montez Sweat to be traded. The latest on that is from Ben Standing of The Athletic, who says that one team has offered the Commanders a 2024 third-round pick that would turn into a second-rounder if Sweat agrees to a contract extension. The Falcons are interested in him. He grew up in Atlanta, might be interested in signing a contract extension since he's from that area. So, we'll see if he gets traded. Bryce Young is there as well. And there's also the question of Jacoby Brissett. And an interesting choice might be, because the Vikings won the game yesterday, interesting choice for Jacoby Brissett might be the Minnesota Vikings, who lost Kirk Cousins with what appears to be a torn Achilles. They haven't fully disclosed what the extent of the injury is, but all expectations are that he's got a torn Achilles. Well, Vikings are 4-4 on the year. They managed to beat Green Bay with a backup quarterback named Hill yesterday. Nobody's heard of. So going forward, a veteran like Brissett might be enough to jockey them to the position to get into the playoffs. Now here's the wild card contention. You're probably going to have Philadelphia and Dallas both make it from the East. Eagles are 7-1. Cowboys are 5-2 after obliterating the Rams yesterday. Only one team is likely to make it from the South. Atlanta and New Orleans are both 4-4. And from the West, Seattle is probably going to make it. San Francisco is probably going to make it. And Detroit from the North, and we'll see what happens tonight, but if the Lions lose tonight to the Raiders, if that's an upset, they're back at 5-3, and the Vikings are right in it for the division at 4-4. They would be just a game back if the Lions lose tonight. So Jacoby Brissett to Minnesota might make a lot of sense. And yes, I mean, he's the veteran that's there for Sam Howell, who's now taken 41 sacks over the course of the season, but he has managed to stay healthy. And if this team is not going to go anywhere, what's the point of not going anywhere with Jacoby Brissett when you could get maybe a third-round pick for him for next year? It's just a thought. And he certainly would be in play. So there's a lot of things that they have to think about with the trade deadline, but it seems like Sweat is going to be the first one who's under consideration. And if they can get a second-rounder for him, I don't know how that would work, whether they would have time to work out a contract extension or whether you just go into it and roll the dice and say, okay, we're betting you are going to work out a long-term deal, so we're going to wait for our second-round pick. That might be worth it. Now, it also means that it would seem to mean, not necessarily, but it would seem to mean that they're going to re-sign Chase Young. And given the investment that they made in him, the second pick of the draft, do you want to give him up now for a third-rounder? Probably you don't. Do you want to see him walk next year and you'd get a third-rounder in compensation because of where he was drafted, and that you would get something big in return that way? But the reality is he's a guy who's had injuries during his career, and I would be very wary of making a move like that. Now, let me get back to what I said earlier about the game yesterday and why I think that this was the best case scenario for the team. Yes, they lost. Okay, that puts an end to this. Maybe we can slip in bad division. You got to be the third team to make it from the East. They still got to play Dallas 2 more times. They've already lost to the worst team in the division, the Giants. They get them again here. They still have to play Miami. They have to play San Francisco. I mean, it's not realistic that they're going to be in the playoffs. So that eliminates that. You get what you can for Montez Sweat. And most important is you saw the development of Sam Howell. This is the best game that he has played. And also, now it's maybe a little bit too late, but you saw maybe what Eric Bieniemy is capable of doing if he gets the proper game plan. Now, why he didn't use this earlier on, especially against the Giants and the Bears, two teams that they should have beaten, and watch Sam Howell get sacked time after time after they dropped them back all the time. They had him throw 52 times yesterday, but they were all short passes. They didn't drop him back much. When they did, he got sacked at the end of the game. But where was this game plan all year? Where do you see, this thing kind of happening? And I don't know why that this wasn't evident earlier in the season, but they finally got around to running, I think, the kind of offense that they need to run for Sam Howell. Everything changes week to week, and Howell will tell you that, how the defense adjusts, and who knows what Bill Belichick's going to come up with next week when they play at New England. But this is what they have to be doing with this quarterback. They can't be dropping him back. This is not Patrick Mahomes, who could just, and if you even watch him yesterday with the flu, and even though they lost in Denver, you just watch the way he creates time in the backfield and how he's able to avoid sacks. Howell isn't there, may never get there. So, why are they doing that? The other thing that's disturbing is that they did not run the ball. And I've been saying this for weeks. You got a guy in Brian Robinson who can run the football. Give him the ball. You know how many carries Robinson had yesterday? 10. 10 carries for 59 yards. As a team, they averaged 5.2 yards a carry. Gibson had only 2 carries for 14 yards, and Howell on scrambles had 3 carries for 11. And they wind up with very few yards rushing. Now, Howell did throw for almost 400 yards, but when you're averaging 5.2 yards a carry, you should put it in the hands of your top running back more than 10 times in a game. It just doesn't make sense. And they did, even with the lack of carries, they still wound up with 84 yards. Well, give them the ball more. So there's still a learning curve going on for Eric Bieniemy, and there's still a learning curve, a big one, for Sam Howell. But I think we saw a step forward for both of them yesterday, and particularly Howell, who was sacked only one time and did throw one interception. But when you're putting the ball up 52 times against a good defense, that's going to happen. They did win the turnover battle, but they lost the game, and that's that was a big emphasis this year: create more turnovers, which they've done, but it hasn't necessarily translated into more wins. Coming up, we'll get to what Sam Howell said about where he is in this season. Also, it was revealed on TV, if you were watching, that he had a meeting with the team and delivered a speech. And you'll hear what he said in that speech, or what he recaps what he said, as we continue with the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
We got Tony coming up at 11 o'clock. I think I've said this throughout the season. If I didn't, I should have, that this year, more than anything else, was about finding out about Sam Howell. It's an unusual move here that Ron Rivera has made. He made this decision to go with Howell this year, even before the team was sold, though I'm sure knew that the deal was going to happen. And he's got 1 year left on his contract. And it's, usually when you're in that situation, you're doing everything you can to win in the short term so you can save your job. But at 61, having been to a Super Bowl, he's overcome cancer, which I think changes your perspective on life. I can't speak for him, but that might be in it. I think he kind of knew that this year was more than likely going to be it for him. And if something miraculous happened and Sam Howell turns into, the next Patrick Mahomes, then it's something else. But he knew he was going to take his lumps this year. He was going to go up and down. And at the end of the year, he's going to lose his job. There will be a new coach here. There'll be a new administration, top to bottom. We've not heard from anybody at the top, right? Jason Wright I don't think has made a peep in the last few weeks. I think he will be out the door. There will be a new situation involving acquiring players that probably be a true general manager here next year. A lot of things are going to change, and I think Rivera sensed, okay, that's likely going to happen. So I give him some credit for riding it out with Sam Howell, and we knew that there would be ups and downs. I don't think anybody at this point expected 41 sacks, but they've had to live with that. The interceptions haven't been terrible. He threw one yesterday, and he threw 4 against Buffalo. But otherwise, he's done a good job of holding on to the ball. He had a strip sack in the opener against Arizona, which they won. So, the growing pains that we expected, not exactly playing out the way we thought they would, but definitely growing pains up and down. and the team continues to play hard for him. They seem to like him. There doesn't seem to be any grumbling, and you'd hear this now. The locker rooms are open. We're not open during the pandemic, but these kind of things trickle out when the locker rooms are open. Why are we going with this kid when we have a team that's capable of making the playoffs, yada, yada, yada. No, they do seem to like him, which is good. And the way he's reacted to the disappointments and to the struggles has been top notch. He's done no whining. He's taken the blame for things when they go wrong. He's done a very good job with this and has remained optimistic throughout all this. He doesn't get rattled. Players say this. You've heard players like Charles Leno say, I've never seen anything like it. The worst thing can happen. He never loses his cool. And he's impressed his teammates that way. And he is saying all the right things about a season that, is going down the tubes. They were 2-0, and now they're 3-5, meaning they've lost 5 of the last 6, but said this yesterday.
You work all off season and you're so excited to play games in the season, and then once you don't start the way you want to, people get down really fast and they're already ready for the season to be over. And fortunately for us, we haven't had a lot of that. The guys are still excited about what's to come. Obviously, we've let a lot of games, get away from us that we could have won. But at the end of the day, we still have 9 more opportunities. And how we approach each and every one of those is up to us. And it's up to the leaders on the team to try to control the morale of the team. And I think we have such a mature team and great leaders on this football team. And I think the main thing is that we know how good we can be as a team. And so we have every single opportunity that we have from here on forward. We're going to put our best foot forward and try to win each game.
Good for him. And he's young. He hasn't been through the true wars of the NFL. Hasn't become bitter. I think he realizes he's in a pretty unique situation as a 5th-round pick. If he was with another team, he might still be on the bench. He may not have even played in a game yet. You can keep 5th-round picks around to do that. And the fact that he's been a starter all year, got his opportunity after only 1 start, was a good thing, and has taken more and more leadership responsibility. Now, he's not the most dynamic speaker. He speaks in kind of a monotone. He says the things that coaches tell their players they're supposed to say. He takes the blame when things go wrong. There's nothing that he said this year. He go, aha, ho, ho. Nothing like that. And it was said, Chris Myers said this during the broadcast, that during the week, Howell had called the team together and addressed them. Hadn't heard anything about it till Myers said it. And after the game yesterday, he was asked what he had said to the team.
Yeah, I just thought, after last week's game, it was a crucial point in our season. It was and it's up to us to dictate where we're going to go moving forward. And I just try to tell everybody that, we're right there and everything we want to accomplish is still in front of us. We can still win enough games to make a run at the playoffs. We still have 9 games left, and a lot can happen in 9 games. So why can't we win 9 games in a row? And so just trying to tell people those things and try to keep people positive, because I believe in this team, and I believe in the men that we have in that room. I believe in the coaches that we have. We just got to be more consistent and find ways to win.
9 games in a row with this schedule, that'll be the story of the century in the NFL. Here's the remaining 9 at New England. Yes, they stink, but they're underdogs going to that game. Then they go to Seattle. Seattle won yesterday with a late score against the Browns. They got the Giants at home. They've already lost to them. Cowboys hung 43 points on the Rams yesterday. That's the Thanksgiving game. Dolphins come here on December 3rd. They have been unstoppable for a large part of the season offensively. Then they go to the Rams in Week 17. Rams were stinko yesterday, but that's going to be a road game. Jets, who maybe, and this I don't think is going to happen, but the way Aaron Rodgers looks every week, who knows if this Christmas Eve game may be his comeback game. This is going to be that game that's got to get a lot of attention on Christmas Eve. So that's going to be interesting. 1:00. Then they go. They have the 49ers coming here New Year's Eve. Looks like at that point the 49ers may be trying to lock up the division, and then the Cowboys to end the year. And the Cowboys may be in the same spot depending on where they are on their matchups with Philadelphia going into that game. So the reality of winning 9 in a row with what's left on the schedule, I mean, I don't see a game where you'd say, yeah, they got a really good chance to win, other than the Giants game here, maybe the Patriots next week, and perhaps the Rams on the road in Week 15. Even the Jets, that's at New York. So, if they win 3 of these last 9 games, that'll be impressive. And they're a 6-win team, which is the malaise they've been in for a long time. And with what's happening next year, depending on, how much of a step up Sam Howell takes, you're probably looking at a team next year that wins a similar amount of games before they get things back on track, and there does have to be a reset. One other thing I want to hit on here, and you've heard me talk about Terry McLaurin the 4 years that he's played here. Just such a breath of fresh air. Everything he says, he's a complete mensch, absolute mensch, a leader, someone you'd love to have as a son. He is top-notch. And to see what happened yesterday with the 2 drops, not that they were, easily catchable balls, but those were Terry McLaurin catchable balls, both thrown low by Howell so they wouldn't get intercepted. And I thought even the second one was more catchable than the first, but either of the 2 he should have caught. And it might have made, I don't think it would have definitely made the difference in them winning or losing the game, but it would have made a difference. And not surprisingly, McLaurin after the game took accountability for what happened.
I'm one of the leaders of this team, and I pride myself on making tough plays, so I got to be better in those situations, and I know I'm going to be. So I take accountability for those tough plays that I missed, and I'm going to just continue to encourage the guys to do the same, because when we don't shoot ourselves in the foot, we make tough plays, and we're a team that's competitive and have chances to win games, but when you don't quite make those plays when you need them most, it's hard to beat really good teams. So as we go forward, we just got to continue to figure out how to stay ahead of the sticks, not shooting ourselves in the foot, and when it comes down to it, making critical plays when you need to.
You know what I felt? I don't know if you felt this way, watching Terry McLaurin drop those passes. It's like your kid is a straight-A student, bringing home great grades, and then you find out he cheated on the final exam. It's like, oh, come on, Terry, how could you do that? Hal did the right thing. Those I thought were both catchable balls. McLaurin should have made both catches, or certainly either one of them. But, again, Hal gets it and knew what to say about that afterwards.
I just told him I got to give him a better chance. The first one, I was trying to stop him, but his job is to stay on the move. I was kind of more worried about the corner falling off of the outside route we had. So Terry did a good job, got open on both those routes. And people might say they were catchable, but at the end of the day, I got to make his job easier. And Terry's a great player, and I got to do my part.
Yeah. So, good job all around. Everybody taking accountability for it. And, hopefully that we don't see that happen again, but it more than likely will. So, 3-5. Time to turn the page, time to make some trades, and tomorrow is the deadline. We'll hear more from Ron Rivera during practice, or after practice today, but I don't expect him to say anything other than what he said yesterday about the trade deadline.
That I'm not going to answer any questions on personnel, okay, just so you understand that. I'll talk about the game we just played. I'll talk about the future game we're about to play, but I'm not going to talk about personnel.
Yeah, not surprising. So that's tomorrow, 4 o'clock. The World Series continues tonight. Just a complete whitewashing of Texas on Saturday night after an incredible game that was played on Friday. 11 innings, and I believe it went well over 4 hours. I just couldn't hang with it that long. I was able to go to bed early enough on Saturday because by the time it was 4-1, I figured the game was pretty much in the hands of the Diamondbacks, especially with their bullpen, although their bullpen did let them down in a classic game on Friday. But the series continues tonight in Arizona, and we'll have coverage here on ESPN 630 starting at 7 o'clock for the 8 o'clock game. As for the deposed Phillies, who lost to Arizona in a shocker, losing back-to-back games at home, with Bryce Harper apologizing to the city of Philadelphia for not getting it done. Really good follow-up column from Bob Nightingale in USA Today that ran over the weekend, and it paints a picture of this essentially being Bryce Harper's team, with Bryce advising the owner as to what he should do. Now, these things don't always work out, and the honeymoon for Bryce Harper, despite the fact that he has not delivered on what would hope to have happened at this point, that he would have delivered a World Series to Philadelphia, they still love him. John Middleton is the owner, and he talked to Bob Nightingale for this column about Bryce, and he said, quote, "I have never seen an athlete in any sport who resonates more with the Philadelphia fan base than Bryce. I'm talking about any athlete in Philadelphia history." Yeah, Charles Barkley, I guess, was polarizing. I don't know if Harper is polarizing, and they do love him. He goes out of his way to say how much he loves Philadelphia. And according to Middleton, it's the contract that makes the difference. When he signed his 13-year, $330 million deal, he insisted he did not want an opt-out. His agent, Scott Boras, told him to reconsider, letting him know he was potentially leaving millions on the table. Manny Machado of the Padres, who signed a 10-year contract with the Padres at the same time, just turned his opt-out into an 11-year, $350 million extension this spring. Quote, this is from Middleton, Bryce endeared himself to our fan base from the get-go. As soon as the fans heard there were no opt-outs, they said, this guy wants to be here. He wants to stay. He wants to raise his family here. He wants to win here. If we had a 5-year opt-out, like a lot of players do, we'd be like, oh, well, you're playing well, but you're just going to leave us. If you're not playing well, you'll stay. That's a one-way street. Fans here don't like one-way streets. And here's the details of this opt-out. By resisting the opt-out, he is now the 22nd highest-paid player in baseball, earning $26 million in a year through 2029, then $22 million in the final 3 years of his contract. He may not even be among the top 100 paid players by the time his contract expires. Now, we don't need to hold the benefit for Bryce Harper. I get it. But, okay, and that's, that. Now with Boras, remember with Strasburg, when he signed his initial extension with Washington, it seemed to be below market value. But it had an opt-out, and it had an opt-out just at the right time. It had an opt-out after Strasburg was the World Series MVP. And he turned that initial extension into a $245 million extension over 7 years, and that's been a complete disaster. So, Boras, when sometimes it looks like he's caving into the interest of his clients and giving them deals which seem to be below market value, in the end, it's Boras saying, no, we got an opt-out. Apparently they don't have that with Harper. And this is what Middleton said. Bryce looked at me and said, I'm willing to bet my future career on you. That's powerfully motivating to me. We trusted him. He trusted us. He did win the MVP in 2021. And Middleton went with Harper's advice, signing some big-name free agents, Zach Wheeler, Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, Trey Turner, and Harper did a lot of the recruiting. And also he came back 2 months earlier than expected from Tommy John surgery this year, says he will be fully healthy in spring training for the first time since 2021, will play first base, played 36 regular season games there and in the playoffs, but would be willing to go to the outfield too if they need him. And according to what is written here by Bob Nightingale, Harper and Middleton, the owner, have the closest player-owner relationship in the game. Harper has spent considerable time recruiting free agents. He offers his input on potential trades. If there's a question about a player's character, the team reaches out to Harper. They constantly stay in contact, which is rich, because when they say if there's a question about a player's character, they reach out to Harper. Remember, when Harper was choked on the bench by Jonathan Papelbon in 2015 at the end of the year, the reports were that many players applauded Papelbon for doing that. So at age 31, maybe he's come a long way, still looking for that ring. And at 31, may or may not get it. We'll see. But what is written here by Bob Nightingale in USA Today, this is an incredible relationship between owner and player. More from Middleton. It's really amazing to me the magnitude in which he's changed this organization. As much as I thought he would help us, it's exceeded even my highest hopes and expectations for him. I mean, we are a completely different organization because he signed here. I feel a deep obligation to Bryce to do everything I can to uphold my end of the bargain, and I will. We will be back. Bank on it. Okay, good. And I wish him well, but I also am very happy that Bryce Harper was not re-signed by Washington, that it worked out, and it worked out with a World Series championship, which happened 4 years ago tonight, and we'll relive it next right here on ESPN 630.